Yeah, before we go on into triad stacks, I thought I'd spend a little more time with this triad. This is basic stuff. It's very basic. Everybody understands it. The question is, are you actually doing it to where you're comfortable with it? I think one of the problems with jazz is that a lot of people who are interested in jazz are smart, pretty quick, maybe very intuitive or very analytical. You can be either way and kind of get to the same place. And you try to, like, I understand it, go this to that to the other and the other, but it's like, but can you actually play it? Do you have it under your fingers? This is how Robert Conti talks all the time. Get it under your fingers, and once you can play it, it's a lot easier to understand. If you understand it to hell and back but can't play it, well, that's fine if you're describing it to someone, but it doesn't help you actually play. And a lot of these things are so very simple. I think guitar players just want to ignore them and go past them. It's like, I don't need that. I know that. It's like, yeah, you know that, but that's not the issue. Are you playing it? Are you so familiar with playing it that you can run through these things without thinking about them? As smart as you are, you want to get to where you're not thinking about these things at all. They're just sort of second nature. And to some people, there may be second nature immediately. Others, not. So let's just run through a few of these cycle things pretty slow. I'm going to do this one a little more thoroughly than Carol does. I just found it useful to me. Someone else may too. But we're starting with the triads, starting at the 12th fret on the low E. And you say the name out loud. She said that so many times, and I heard that like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't need to do that. I needed to do that, but I wasn't doing it. And so eventually, when I started having to do it, I realized if I had started doing this when she first told me to, I would be further along. But I was hard-headed. I thought I was too smart. Bullshit. Anyway, sorry for my language. E, A, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C, F with an open string, B flat with an open string, back to E flat on the A string root, D, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E. This is a common sequence, this E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. So I wanted to practice it with the A string to D string roots for a lot of the flat keys. Otherwise, I was not getting those keys going down the scale that way. The other exercise, which I found very helpful, she puts this in a few of her books, excuse me. Coffee with Mark, huh? Is the triads going across. So we're starting here on the 3rd fret, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C. Saying those out loud really helped me for two reasons. One is that it helped me learn those names. And she mentions this, Carol does somewhere, is it keeps you from thinking about other things too. I never realized how important that was. I'll tell you a quick story because I found it useful and it made a big difference in other parts of my life as well as what. When I was in seminary, I had to give talks at Mass a lot. When I was on assignment, I had to preach, I think, 70 times in over the course of several months. Daily Mass, short things, but I worked at it and I wanted to be good at it. And I was anxious and I wrote these things out and I practiced them. Timing and tempo. Pace is very important to that. So I read a book by a woman named Dorothy Sarnoff, the name of which I forget now, but she had been a Broadway actress. I think she had trained a lot of people, and it was about the voice and speaking. The book that I read was about speaking, but that was part of her background. And she talked about these mantras, not some esoteric thing, It was just 4 things you would say when you're sitting there waiting to go on. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I care about you. I know that I know. And so I'm sitting in a room with hundreds of people, and I'm about to stand up and speak, and I know this, and I'm a nervous wreck, right? But I just look about, and silently, I'm like, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I care about you. I know that I know. And it sort of regulates the breathing, which is crucial, and it keeps other thoughts from intruding. And I think for many of us, one of the hardest things in improvising jazz is not to figure out what to play, is to just stop all these other things. It's like you've got 48 ideas to play at one time. Well, I could go up a fourth and play a minor scale based on the flat fifth. I could go down a third and play this. I could do this, but it's like, hey, you just sat out a whole solo. You didn't play a note. I was thinking. I was preparing. Well, it took a little too fucking long, dude. You don't have that long. And it's not, I apologize again for my language, but Carol talks about this, and I think it's one of her important lessons, though she doesn't stress it directly, is you really don't want to be thinking a lot when you're playing. You want to be at a point where you're not thinking about it. Not because anything goes, but because you know what works. You have what she calls your anchor notes, and you can play freely around and among, and things will come to you as you're playing. It's not like somebody has a 32-bar solo written out in their head in advance. You're just kind of feeling your way through, and the patterns help with that. But they can only do it when they're to a point where you don't have to think about them. That's my little sermon for today. Anyway, thanks for indulging me. But the cycle stuff, this really helped me. I knew the fingerboard a lot better from doing this simple exercise than any other single exercise, because you just G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B. It's not just learning the names of the notes, it's learning this relationship of notes, which comes up so much when you're going up a fifth or down a fourth. These movements occur over and over, and your fingers have a sense of where to go. This is why the chordal scale thing is so good. That sort of business. Your fingers start winding their way around, and you're not having to think which chord you're playing on now, because you know all these chords and notes are available at a certain point. But in order to do that, you really have to know the cycle, and not just up here. This is easy. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C. So that's easy. Having it all together down here and all over the guitar is not as easy. It's not that hard, but you have to actually do it. Class dismissed. I apologize for coming off as if you're my students and I'm your teacher or something. I do think this is very important, and I hope those of you that haven't been posting yet are thinking about these things and actually practicing these things. And as simple as they sound, they really do carry you a long way. The answer is not some esoteric thing that you need to figure out. It's a sequence of simple things that you want to get to where you don't have to think about them anymore at all. Stop thinking. Start playing.